Hey, all you burners out there, this is WEEDMAN420 with Mrs. WEEDMAN420 at the WEEDMAN420 Chronicles. How are my burners doing out there on this greatest holiday of burner stoner history, 420? It is our day to celebrate, our day to smoke out, especially that cannabis is legal and becoming legal and medically legal in a lot of states and being decriminalized in a lot of states. It is our day to smoke. Hopefully all my burners and stoners are out there are doing their best and partying like it all should be going down, or burning and toking and smoking. But since it is 420, I do want to make this episode in honor of a very young girl who just passed away on April 7th of 2020. This episode is in honor of Charlotte Figi. She is the reason why we have the CBD strain, Charlotte's Web. And give her a little bio and history about her. Her and her twin sister Chase were born October 18th, 2006 in Colorado. Charlotte had a seizure when she was 3 years old and was diagnosed with a rare and life-threatening seizure disorder known as Dravet syndrome, which we've mentioned before in this podcast. She was prescribed a variety of pharmaceuticals, but nothing seemed to work. Her seizures were constant and long-lasting. She was placed in hospice at the age of 5. Crazy. Charlotte's mother's Paige refused to take her daughter's diagnosis lying down. She researched her disorder, related disorders, and eventually found a Brazilian study about epilepsy and cannabinoid. In 2011, she embarked on a journey to get a hold of supply of CBD and tracked down growers who cultivated it. At this point in time, CBD was rarely discussed, even in the cannabis space. But the stars aligned, and Paige was finally approached by a professional cannabis grower by the name of Joe Stanley. They worked together to create a high CBD, low THC strain. When Paige administered the resulting oil, Charlotte went from having 300 seizures a week, to a few episodes a month. That's huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And it was a dramatic improvement that no one had anticipated. Paige became an advocate for not only her daughter, but for the children suffering from interactable epilepsy. Charlotte, in addition to finding relief from the seizures, became the poster child of CBD and was featured in a pro-cannabis documentary and in our own High Times' own female 50 issues of High Times in the past November. This is pretty dope. I'm going to smoke, actually, in honor of her, a cannabis strain by Revolution Spectra called Blackberry Web, which is a 2-to-1 CBD to THC strain. It's mixed with Blackberry Kush and Charlotte's Web, which I actually really like this strain. Mrs. Weedman likes me on it too, because it gets me to clean the house a lot. So, Mrs. Weedman, take it over while I smoke this real quick, will you?
Well, okay. On the note of the Figi family, it's pretty cool. Here was a mom that had a child who was sick, and it left her in the face of adversity and the struggle that parents come across when their child is sick. They want nothing more than their child healing and being better. And look what it resulted in. Not just their own child being better, but children all over the world having a resource to get them pharmaceutical free. And I believe Charlotte was completely pharmaceutical free.
Absolutely.
And all because of THC.
CBD.
I'm sorry, CBD. Could you imagine? There could have been all different issues.
Yeah. This strain that I'm smoking is out of I feel the CBD more of a relaxing, no head high at all when I get this. It helps me think clearly, which I like, and I wonder if it's a very low, like I said, very low the THC dose, and I get a very good body buzz and no pain in my lower back. So I can understand why CBD is so widely used today. But this strain actually works for me. I've smoked just straight CBD, and it doesn't really work, but the ratio tends to work for me a lot, and I can see why this helped young Charlotte and many other people around the world today who get to smoke some CBD with a little bit of low THC. Don't forget, you need that THC, a low amount, to kickstart that CBD a little bit. I'm actually smoking out of a new piece, though, that I just got from an online website called Space Smoke Shop. It is a percolator bong. It's a new Rick and Morty bong that I got, and I actually love smoking out of this thing. I love smoking out of my normal bong, but this is a little bit different. You see me showcase this on my Instagram, on my story, but this is a very smooth hit out of this, what they call a percolator bong. I highly, highly recommend it. Whether you buy it from Space Smoke Shop, or anybody, if you can find this on any website or any head shop you go to, this percolator bong is awesome. Mrs. Weedman tried it. She's not always the best at smoking out of the bigger beaker bongs, would you say, Mrs. Weedman? But what'd you think of this new percolator bong that I actually bought for you?
I like it. It's smooth, and the cool thing is that the smoke sits in the little chamber in the little water pot. So if you can't pull it all on one hit, you can just kind of hold your hand over
we didn't even need to do
the
that
end
either.
of it. I know, but you can double pull off of it essentially.
Kind of like a pipe,
kind of
almost
neat.
like a old man smoking pipe where they just keep it lit and burning and
Corn cob
smoking.
pipe.
Yeah, like a corn cob pipe.
My dad had one of those. I think I bought it for him.
Mrs. Weedman's not smoking today, and I'll go into that a little. She took an edible a little bit ago. We're going to see how that feels. We're going to talk about that, why she's not smoking and versus taking an edible. So we'll go into that in a little bit. But I just took a second rip because like I said, I really, really love this strain. Mrs. Weedman, how would you say cannabis sales, or what do you think cannabis sales are doing in this last 30 days since the COVID-19 or the C-19 or the coronavirus that people are, I mean, there's so many different names and so many different memes right now, and there's been a lot of funny fucking shit that's been going on the web. We live in Chicago, and the Lori Lightfoot memes have been absolutely friggin' hilarious, what we've been seeing.
For those who might not know, she's the mayor of Chicago,
Yes,
and she has an awesome sense of humor.
Yes, yeah, she was. Yeah. It's been really funny. She was the one that was really about stay the hell home and all the memes we've been seeing of her. But you guys out there, you burners and stoners and whoever, some of this stuff is funny as hell. I've been seeing. It's been keeping it very interesting in what's going on. So I know a lot of you guys have been smoking a lot of cannabis this last 30 days, besides probably playing video games, learning how to cook, and doing a bunch of other things. And I just found out from a buddy of mine that his wife is pregnant, so he had a really good pandemic stay at home for the last 30 days. So, but I say, looking at going to the dispensaries, the lines are just about the same. I know here in Illinois it's mostly medical. There's not very many dispensaries selling recreational right now because of supplies have been low, but there has been a big trend. Some states more than others. I know Illinois has been pretty good. California's hit or miss. Colorado went through the roof with sales. It's to be expected because alcohol sales have gone up. Of course, TP and papered goods have gone up through the roof. So in times where people are sitting at home, what else are you going to do besides work? If you're staying at home working, you're going to want to loosen up a little bit at the end of the night. So I think, and from what I'm reading here, prices have gone up also because demand has gone up. So you could see in some states where they're making a little bit extra cash on us right now, which is kind of bullshit. But you guys are smoking and token, especially that's 420, but they have gone up sales. Something that, Mrs. Weedman's got something to say?
Yeah.
What do you got to say?
You were going to ask me what I thought about it, and you never let me talk.
Sorry about that.
Jeez, Mr. WEEDMAN420 is on a roll tonight. He's not giving me any mic time, but that's all right. That's all right. You asked me what I thought of sales and if they had increased since the COVID-19, and I would guess that everybody was stockpiling in the get-go, and all the recreational users were getting what they could. But I think, like most things, it's starting to stabilize, and people are realizing that the supply is not going to run out, and the doors will stay open. So I think it's all good.
Yeah, which is great. We'll go into that in a little bit later about taking care of your bud tenders and your dispensaries and how you're going in and stuff like that. Something I want to talk about in this time too, because you're probably either buying it from a dispensary or you're growing it yourself, or you're buying it from your weed man. Because don't forget, I'm not the only weed man in this world. There's a lot of weed men and women out there, just so you know. But what we want to really kind of talk about is how to look for good and bad quality cannabis buds. Your strains that you're smoking, some of your favorite strains, especially in this time too, because if they're trying to get stuff out fast, or you're buying it from your weed man or your dealer, or as Dov Boy would always do, from the back alley deals, buying his oregano from the back alley deals. Mrs. Weedman, do you know what to look for when it comes to I mean, I always show you what nugs look like every time I get a good nug, but what you've learned, you know what to look for, good, bad, or the ugly, when it comes to cannabis and what you're looking at, your buds and your nugs and all the fun stuff in between?
Well, I can't say that I've ever interacted with a street dealer. I was in high school and smoked marijuana very infrequently.
So you probably
a few times
that,
here
you
and
probably
there.
smoked that ditchweed brickweed
Yeah,
back
I
in the
never
day.
bought. I never bought it. I don't think I ever even saw it. Like maybe there was just a joint at a party that went around and I had a little, so I wouldn't have known a single thing. And then I guess I didn't really start partaking again until we were buying from a dispensary. So I only know product as it's packaged through a dispensary. I don't know street, so I wouldn't necessarily know what it would look like or
Right.
if it was good or bad. You do show me a good bud. I know like the difference in a good dense bud and the colors and the smells and the terpenes.
And that's what's good about
yeah.
you, because just like how you've always helped me out when it comes to taste. You have better taste buds than me, so your smell is better than mine. So it's good that I always get your opinion on what it smells like, what you're looking at. When you're looking at weed, back when I was in high school, we would get something called ditchweed or brickweed or swag or shit or whatever, and that was just that brown Mexican weed you'd get back in the the 80s and 90s and stuff like that. And that stuff was just crap. I mean, probably about very low trichomes and terpenes and cannabinoids and everything else in between. And that's probably what we were smoking back then, me and Mrs. Weedman. But now, now that cannabis is now being grown hydroponically, it's being grown in big, huge manufacturing warehouses, and the growers nowadays have, taken cannabis to another level. I remember the first time I've smoked hydro, or we called it dro, or we called it crippy. This was back in probably the mid 90s, I would say 94, 95. Weed had gotten better, stronger. You could see the difference compared to just dirt brickweed and nice grown buds that you would get that were tight and beautiful looking, filled with trichomes, and they were dense and they were fat, and they were getting better and better. So the difference between the late 80s or mid 90s until you really started seeing some different cannabis being grown to where you're looking at it nowadays. And this is the question: take a good look at your cannabis when you're getting it from your dispensary, or you're getting it from your weed man or weed woman, or you're growing it yourself. Look at how the buds look. Are they tight? Are they crisp? Is there a lot of like trichomes on there and the terpenes? Because that's what really matters nowadays when you're looking at cannabis. And I'm going to go into that. There's a lot of different words that we call good dank bud. There's the sticky icky, the fire, the some people call it loud. I just learned a new word from a grower friend of mine called greasy. I actually like that word a lot. And greasy means the sticky icky. It just means nice, smooth. And he sent me some notes that I'm going to talk about on looking at what to look at. Not only just people always talk about THC and CBD, which you've heard us talk about strains before. You've also heard us talk about sativa indica hybrids. But that's not only what matters anymore. Some people, because it measured out THC that high, like we were smoking 38%. But I've smoked stuff that was at 14% and got me just as high as the 38%. It more matters that we're finding out as science and as people are looking into it. It's all about the trichomes. It's about looking at how bud is under the microscope. And one thing he sent me some notes on was it's not always about THC. For him as a grower, and if you want to check him out, he's Earl217 is his Instagram page, and he grows some fire ass weed that he's been showing me, and I can't wait to go up there and meet with him and smoke his new stuff that he's been growing. But some of the stuff he talked about is, for him, one is how smooth it smokes. Now, we've smoked some weed that kind of hurt our throat, right, Mrs. Weedman? Mm-hmm. And he wants to be able to smoke an entire joint and be high as fuck, as he says here in his notes to me, and not have to cough his dick off or worry about his throat being sore. True. Because you've said this at times. Sometimes you smoke some weed that burnt your throat a little bit, and you smoke regularly almost every night now. And there's some strains that we've smoked that have been fantastic, that are just smooth, as he would call it, maybe greasy. But you too.
And then there's nights where they're too much. Mm-hmm. But I will say, when you come home with your bag from the dispensary, I'm like a little kid, like, let me see your bag, let me see your bag. And I have to open every container and smell every bud.
That's the fun part.
It's like a treat, yeah. Mm-hmm. You got to see if it's like good. It's just fun. Yep. It's exciting.
The second thing we always talk about, he talks about here, is flavor. And every time we smoke a nice strain, we're like, oh man, that tastes good. That's because of the cannabinoids and the trichome stuff we've talked about, where you're going to get your flavor from, your mycolines, your lipolines, and all that stuff. And he talks about flavor. And then number 3 would be how it makes you feel. right? We always right away. We within 15, 20 minutes, we're looking at one
Whoa.
another.
I think you had that moment last night.
Yeah, or
Whoa.
we're dancing around the kitchen, or we're getting some snacks. I mean, every strain does something different to us. And then number 4 was, like I talked about, how greasy it is. He likes to roll. He likes to see his joints roll themselves. I thought it was kind of funny.
I like that.
Yeah. Plus, in his experience, the more greasier, the better, the high, and the more flavor. And he says here, THC is awesome. Don't get him wrong, but as long as it's like between 15 and 16%, you're gonna get high off a joint. So I thought it was some great notes. Go check him out, though. His weed is absolutely spectacular looking. I mean, some of the stuff that he's been growing. So Earl217, thanks for the notes on this, buddy. Hopefully we can get together soon after this whole thing, this craziness is over, and come up to your grow room and have some good experiences, you know. Like, don't forget, look at the resin and the trichomes like he talked about and some of that, and that's what you should be looking for, looking at that bud. And which is, here in Illinois, it's a little bit different. Like, I've been to Michigan, and Michigan and Oregon, they are in big glass jars where they take the jar down and you get to actually look at the nugs and smell it and observe the trichomes. I actually went to one dispensary in Michigan where they had the little diamond looker where you can actually they'll show you the trichomes.
A jeweler's loop.
What's it called?
A jeweler's loop.
Thank you.
Sure.
Jeweler's loop.
No problem.
So, but I enjoy that because then you could pick out. They show you the nugs on the tray and then they weigh them out. I think that's dope. Illinois, what sucks is some of the dispensaries they don't have a see-through jar on the side or the plastic cups, so you can't really see the weed. You can't see the cannabis.
You see it when you bring it home.
Yeah, you gotta wait
like the
till you
first
get
time.
home.
Yeah, and
you know right away whether you got good dank cannabis, greasy cannabis, or loud. You're just like, these nugs are kind of small. They're like, you know. I mean, the high still might be there, and you're not going to know until you blaze up. That's the other thing. Until you fire up a joint or a bong or a bowl, whatever, you're not going to know how that cannabis is until you smoke it. Right? Right. So just take a look at it. Look at the quality and the potency. And if you're one of the ones in the States that you can take a really look at, but observe what you're buying. It's yours. Once you take it home, you want to know you're getting the prime real estate, the best of the best. Right.
And I think that's what makes it so cool about the fact that marijuana is legal now, because it is, it's like a fine-tuned machine at this point. They know the strain. They know how it works. They know what it's going to do to your body and your mind and how heavy it's going to be. And so you could sit here and you can look at the label and to you, it might be like, I don't know what any of that means. I'm just going to smoke it. Whatever. But then you can say, hey, this strain is good for me. I really felt good off of this one. You can just take your own little side notes of, I'm getting this strain again because this works for me. Some people are just trial and error. It's not about all the technicalities on the jar. It's overwhelming. I don't know what all this stuff means. But it's just cool because it's not your mom and dad's pot. You're not it's not the mystery pot. You're at a party and you're a teenager and you smoke it.
I remember stealing some pot from my dad's drawer in 1981.
I remember seeing I saw other people's parents' stashes. Like, look what my mom and dad have in their closet.
I remember stealing something from my dad and bringing it to my cousin, and we're like, what do we do with it? They're like, get a can.
I was smoking out of the can.
Yeah. Hey, Mrs. Like we talked about, Mrs. Weedman took an edible probably about a half an hour, 45 minutes ago. Did that kick in yet?
Yeah, it's subtle. It's a 5 milligram.
It's a 5 milligram
but for me, that's enough.
It's a good little start. Yeah. And the reason why we had her take an edible is because during this pandemic, there's a big debate right now, smoking cannabis or taking edibles right now, because this is a respiratory disease or viral. They're saying that people who have asthma or having respiratory problems should not be smoking because it does cause inflammation. You're still putting smoke in your body, whether it be cigarette smoke, cigar smoke, pipe smoke, cannabis smoke. Now, what's in those other things you smoke is something different than what's in this cannabis, but you're still putting smoke in your chest, in your lungs. So you need to be careful. If you do have any kind of respiratory issues, take edibles, do tincture, and that's why Mrs. Weedman took an edible. We're trying to dial her down off of smoking. If she is smoking, it's very, very little. Not taking big rips. You got to be careful of your lungs and just be careful, Mrs. Weedman. We tried some test this week. You didn't smoke at the beginning of the week. You didn't smoke at all, right? Mm-hmm. And then by Wednesday you smoked. How did your lungs feel? Did they hurt? Were they tight? And this is the experiment we did.
So I've been having asthma type issues this week, which puts a seed of concern into my brain because here we are in the middle of this pandemic. And what is the top concern of everybody? Are you coughing? Well, I'm coughing. But it's spring and I have asthma, so this is normal. But there's this whole little mental thing that's playing games saying you might have it, but you can't get tested.
Stay away from the media.
So, anyway, long story short, I thought, I shouldn't smoke. I'm not a big smoker. I smoke in the evening before we go to bed. I might take 2 or 3 hits off of a joint or a bowl, and I'm good. That's all I take in a whole 24-hour period. It's not much, right? So this week I thought, I'm just going to lay back. I'm not going to do any of that. I just don't want to stir up any trouble. I'm not feeling 100%. So I did lay off at the start of the week, and then, like you said, on Wednesday, I had a couple hits, took small little hits. It was just a little light high. It was fine. It didn't irritate my chest. I didn't wake up feeling like, ooh, I shouldn't have done that. But today I just thought, you know what, it's the end of the week now, and I'm still not feeling 100%. So I'm going to scale back completely and just go to the edibles. And the wonderful thing is I took a 5 milligram gummy after we were eating dinner, and I just feel good. It's just nice and mellow.
Nice. And that's, if you are prone to allergies right now that make your lungs inflame because it is the season, asthma, any kind of lung issues, go to the tinctures, go to the edibles, go to the topicals right now. I know we all love to smoke. A lot of people on this love to smoke, and out of any apparatus you like to smoke out of. Also, be careful with vapes too right now. Don't be smoking vapes if you have lung issues.
Yeah, I'm not touching those.
Yeah, so just be careful out there and bake edibles. You probably know somebody that can bake a cookie. Give them your cannabis, make some butter, and then you're off to the races. You can put stuff in the freezer too, don't forget. It can last a good year to 2 years in the freezer. So if you make a bunch of edibles and you think they're going to go bad, throw them in the freezer. Have some fun with it too. Experiment. This is the time. You're at home. Learn how to cook some edibles. There's tons of recipes, YouTube videos, fun stuff to learn how to make edibles and learn how to make butter. I use the magic butter machine. I bought one 3 years ago. That thing is the fucking best.
It's great.
So, and you can just do all your butters in that, strain it. You can do, we've made olive oil. We've made tons of fun stuff. So go to the edibles. Watch your bodies right now. We talked about this in a couple other episodes. So now, here's the thing I want to talk about. There is a lot of people that have gotten laid off, lost their jobs, and I apologize for anybody out there going on unemployment. This breaks my heart. Here's what, though. When the world or the globe, because we are in over 200 countries, our cities, and we're over 135 countries, there is a lot of people listening to us on this podcast, and thank you very much for that. When the world goes back to work, and this coronavirus, this Corona C-19, they start allowing us to go back to work, and the countries are going back to organization again, you're going to have to get your jobs back or go look for new jobs. Now, I don't know how it is in every other country, but in the United States, a lot of companies do drug testing. And the question is, to most people, is how long does cannabis stay in your system? And there's tons of websites, tons of doctors that have talked about this. It's all over the place. To me, and it's going to be based on your age, gender, metabolism, body mass index, and how often you smoke. And those are the ones that you need to really look at. It also depends on what the company does, whether it's a piss test, a blood test, a hair test. There's all different factors in this that you need to learn. Now, I've been drug tested a few times for getting jobs, and it was always a piss test. I never had to worry about hair, and I don't have any hair in my head, but I've always been told they could pull it off of anywhere. So I've never had been into a blood test before either. So just be careful in what your company's doing, what the companies you're going to be getting hired back to, or I don't know if the company you worked for that you might have got laid back off or furloughed that you might have to get hired back if they make you go back into that. So just be careful and learn what your companies are doing and learn about your body. Tons of websites and tons of stuff to look at. Let's just go into some basics here. Just real easy. THC is an ingredient in cannabis that's responsible for the plant's psychoactive effects. We've talked about that many times. In other words, the compound that causes the high when addressing the question of how long it takes weed to leave your system. THC is what we look at, what most people look at, scientists, when they're testing your urine or anything else. They want to know how long THC lingers around in your fatty tissue, in your blood, and your urine. So just know that THC will leave your body, could be anywhere from a week to 30 days, depending on what they're testing. So just be careful. I'm not going to keep on breaking more down. You guys can find all your facts. Just like I said, results will vary. So urine, here's the biggest one, because this is the one I wanted to read for you. I'm not going to talk about blood or hair right now. You can go on your own and do that. You're all big boys and girls. If you're asking yourself how long does cannabis stay in your system, what are more likely you want to know is the amount of time that it stays in your urine. In other words, when people ask things like how to flush your system efficiently, when they really want to know how to clean your urine to the point where the THC metabolites can no longer be detected. Drug testing, of course, is pretty standard protocol among companies all over the world. Most employers require that the employees undergo a test revealing the absence of drugs. Of course, you already know this. After all, you are hearing online searching for how long weed stays in your system. There's so many different ways of flushing out your body. Apart from the blood and saliva test, urine testing is one of the most effective ways to screen a person for cannabis use. This is quite obviously why one of the most frequently searched terms online is how to clean your piss.
Is it really? That's funny.
Urine testing is the cheapest method of drug testing, remember that, and it has one of the longest detection periods. Therefore, it's essential to know how long weed can be detected in your urine after consuming it. Let's see here. So just learn for single use once in a 30-day period could be up to 8 days. For regular use, 4 to 6 times over a 30-day period, up to 15 days. For frequent use, 10 to 15 times over a 30 days. For heavy use, 20 times or more in a 30-day period, 45 to 77 days. So
in your urine?
In your
Whoa,
urine.
that's crazy.
Now,
that's
there's
weird.
ways on here how to pass the urine test. I know people that used to use something called the Whizzer.
Come on.
I swear. I met a kid. He was a union worker, and he said he used something called the Whizzer. Now, the Whizzer is you get somebody who knows how to pee clean to pee in this Whizzer bag, and it has a heating apparatus in there that keeps it at your body temperature. Because that's the first way they bust you, because if you go in with cold urine, they test your body. The first thing they do is test the temperature of your urine to see if you're faking it before you're making it. Okay, so what they do is it's a Whizzer. It attaches to your stomach. You go in, and there's a little nozzle that comes out and it pees in the cup like you're actually peeing, but it actually keeps your temperature. So there's one way to do it. But there's also like flushes, and there's also they always say like cranberry juice or some kind of juice to screw up test. There's so many different stuff in here. Just go out and read what you're gonna need to do to pass your urine test. So, and don't forget, nothing is guaranteed. Good luck on that when you get back to work, people, and hopefully as stuff gets decriminalized and getting better for us here, more and more companies will not be testing for cannabis. Get it off the Schedule 1, please, federal government. Thank you. Let's talk a little about, in this time, we all know, listening to the news and talking to people, anxiety is really big right now. You've heard this too, Mrs. Weedman, right?
Yes.
Anxiety and paranoia and schizophrenia and people who are anxious because they're locked up in their house. And
the fear of getting sick and
and that's all the underlying issues. Because you're at the stay-at-home lockdown, you're afraid because everything you're hearing on the news, or you are afraid of getting sick, or you might have been exposed, and who knows. But is cannabis helping your anxiety right now? And that's an issue right now. I mean, I know there's some strains in my time that have made me very paranoid. And this is when that whole era of like the higher pronounced strains were coming out in the beginning, and my body wasn't used to that, and I had been paranoid off of cannabis at times in my life, and I hear that a lot. And Paulie, who has been on this podcast multiple times, has talked about paranoia by smoking too much. And here's the thing: can cannabis help anxiety?
Well, I hear that if you study your strains or you ask your bud tender at your dispensary for help, there's definitely strains that have been found to help people. They tend to be a higher CBD strain or just a different variety of THC. And I don't have anxiety per se, but I know that there are strains of marijuana that make me anxious, where I feel like, oh, everybody knows I'm high. Oh, shit. Or you feel like I can't even get words out. I think my brain stopped. And so you're like kind of paranoid because, oh, shit, what if that person wants to talk? I can't get words. So there are definitely strains that cause anxiety.
Absolutely.
And for someone with anxiety issues or a variety of issues, mental illness and things, those may not be the best. So that's where resources come into play. The internet is amazing, but even better, when you are going to a dispensary, these people that are behind the counter, your bud tenders, they know. They know the language, they know the product. Talk to them. Tell them what your real deal is, and they will help you. Totally.
Yep. And the other thing, too, is it's important on what dosage you're taking. And Paulie brought this up a while ago, too. The importance of how much you intake, whether it be an edible. And now I've been on edible comas where I've gotten fucked up on some edibles before and was too high and too like, whoa, okay, this is going to be a 6-hour pain kind of thing. And I know there's some people that listen to this that know that. But you got to learn how to dose yourself. Don't overdo it when you smoke. Don't overdo it when you take edibles. Don't overdo it when you do tinctures or any of that stuff. Moderation is the key. And Mrs. Weedman has been preaching to Mr. Weedman for about 25 years about moderation. And yes, we've been together 25 years. So moderation is the key. You can always, and you've heard me say this is with anything you do when it comes to, let's just say, any kind of drug you've ever taken. I know people do shrooms that listen to this podcast that have taken psychedelics and stuff like that. You can always move forward. You can never go back. And you'll hear me preach that on this podcast to the day I die, okay? You can always go forward. You can never go back. If you take too much of something, it's going to hurt. Okay? So remember that when you're dosing.
Yeah, and I think that, that's a huge thing. And as a relatively new smoker, I will say where the appeal came in is just learning to take my time with it. Getting to know how I felt on any strain, and like just knowing what one hit of weed made me feel like, and getting familiar with those feelings, and then working my way up to 2 hits and like, okay, I'm good, and then occasionally a third. I know that 3 is good. Like I go to 4 and I'm like, man, I shut down.
Yeah,
I'm
Mrs.
done.
Weedman have spanked my hand many a times because I go 5, 6.
Yeah, Mr. Weedman's like, I'm really high. I'm gonna have some more. It's like, yeah. So he's kind of slow on the moderation game, but he's learning. So I will say, everybody, start slow. It's very true. You can't go back. And the biggest thing with edibles, I always tell people when they're getting started, learning how to smoke weed, learning if they like it or not, don't start with edibles. They're unpredictable. There's so many things involved. Your metabolism, what you ate. There's the hormones, I even think. These are just my own personal feelings about how they affect your body. You don't know when they're going to kick in. People tend to think, oh, they're not doing anything. I'm going to eat more. And they eat a whole cookie that, is 50 milligrams. And they've never smoked before. Well, bye.
I'm crying to my mommy.
Yeah.
But
bye,
we know
Felicia.
people that can take 50 milligrams, 100 milligrams.
Yes,
We do know
but not
people
your
like
beginner.
that.
So
Right.
please, have a 5 milligram. Have 1 hit off of a joint and just stop. Let it do its thing. Like it took me, I had a 5 milligram edible an hour ago, and I'm just feeling it. It's subtle. I feel it now. Like if I thought in a half hour, like, oh, I need to have
And
more.
we also ate too.
And
So it took a little time for Mrs. Weedman to hit her digestive system too, because we did eat before she took the edible. So sometimes you got to realize that too, also.
But that's the thing. In newbie, someone new to this that doesn't have anyone helping them or instructing them, they don't know that. So start with smoking. And if you decide to go the route of edibles, 5 milligrams at a time. Like
there's even 2 milligrams now, which is nice. Start with that. I know people that 2 milligrams is good for them. I mean, it doesn't do anything for me anymore, but here's another thing too. Start off with a ratio. Learn about, if you don't want the psychoactive high from THC, what THC gives you, start off with a ratio. Like I smoke this 2-to-1 ratio, the CBD to THC. I love it. There is no head high at all on this. It is all body, all relaxation. Like I'm thinking clear. Now I feel a little bit in my head. It's getting me to think clearly. And this CBD to THC ratio, you can also start with that. Start with a higher CBD ratio. Look for an 18-to-1. Like I've smoked this one. You've heard me mention it. We've actually smoked it on this podcast, Critical Cure. I preach that to the new beginner of cannabis smoking or cannabis edibles or anything. Critical Cure is dope. There's also some other ones out there too that have a good ratio and stuff like that. Like we talked about Charlotte, just straight Charlotte's Web, Canatonic, Harlequin. Those are all CBD strains that are higher in CBD, like a 15-to-1 or an 18-to-1 or a 4-to-1 or a 2-to-1. Start with that and see how it feels. It's only going to help you. And actually, that takes away all paranoia and all anxiety. I mean, if you are, those strains right there are phenomenal. So, I mean, look into what you're smoking and ask your bartender, or shoot us an email or a DM. We can help you full with these strains. Me and Mrs. Weedman right now have plenty of time to look stuff up for you and help you out. Here's the other thing too that we were talking about. Me and Mrs. Me were talking about earlier was strains for PTSD and anxiety. And we were looking this up earlier just to get more involved in what specific strains on the THC level. And there are a few of these on here that I've smoked. One is the Sweet and Sour Widow, which is like a 1-to-1 strain. Time Wreck, which I've heard tons about, but that is one you need to be careful with because it's an award-winning strain that packs a punch. So start really light on that if you can find that in your area. Afghani CBD, Grape Ape, which I've smoked before, and then CBD Kush. These are all the ones we were talking about earlier that have that good ratio on top of the ones we mentioned, the Harlequin and the Critical Cure. These are going to help you with your anxiety and PTSD. Okay, if you do have PTSD from serving in the military or anything out there that you get PTSD, car accidents or something that makes you scared or nervous, start off light. Start off with something on this ratio that we've talked about, and Mrs. WeedMan can attest to this right now. It does help your body and it helps your mind in this time right now while you're sitting at home. So, and if you guys have any questions, just DM us, email us. We'll be happy to help you out in this time also. Okay, so be safe on what you're smoking out there. Michigan and a lot of other states right now are doing new online ordering, delivery services, curbside models. I'm actually going to my dispensary on Monday, 420, to if you find me, I'll be there, dressed in our Mr. Weedman costume, and that I love to wear so much, and you guys will see me out there. But the cool thing about this is that I can call, and they'll be waiting, and I've been hearing stories and reading stuff online that, like, they'll come out and bring you the bag to your car. Like, I heard one story was the money was in the trunk. Now, this is kind of funny. They opened the trunk up, the bud tender put the baggie in the car, the money was in the trunk, took the money out, shoved the trunk, and the guy drove away.
It's like a drug deal.
No, that's what I thought. That's what
funny.
I thought at first. But it was an article about a dispensary on the north side of Chicago. I thought it was dope as hell. You know, so also be safe when you're going into these dispensaries. Be very respectful. You want to tell the story of me because I was in the girl's face at the bud tender's face.
Yeah. Hello.
Go ahead, tell the story.
Social distancing rules don't apply to Mr. Weedman. He wants to just be close to everybody. So there we were.
Especially Mrs. Weedman.
Yeah, we Purelled our hands on the way in. We had our temperature taken. We get in. We go get in our line. Bud tenders are behind the counter. There's tape. Stay behind it. Nah, not Mr. Weedman. Because he likes to just do his thing. So there he was, like right up front, like, you know, reaching practically at the bud tender's hand. Like, let me see the package. He's a slow learn. It's okay, though.
So, but look into what your states are doing right now. And if they're doing curbside deliveries, take advantage of that. Keep the bud tenders safe. Keep the cultivators safe right now because they need to keep on getting us cannabis for our medication. So make sure you're doing that. Cool thing, we talked about this a couple of episodes ago. Virginia governor approves marijuana decriminalization bill. Finally, another state on the list. So that means once they decriminalize it, goes into medical, and then the medical goes for a couple of years, and then they'll legalize it. Recreational. Great job, Virginia governor. Proud of you on that. Yep. Go it again.
Whoop, whoop.
There we go. A country that I've been wanting to visit probably most of my whole entire adult life is New Zealand. A little shout out on our international news here. Way to go, New Zealand, on launching some new medical cannabis rules in your country because you guys were very strict for a while there. And the Minister of Health and Medicinal Cannabis Agency will open its new process for cultivators and manufacturers of medicinal cannabis. Way to fucking go, New Zealand. I think we have a couple hundred listeners in New Zealand. Thank you for listening. But also, way to go, New Zealand, because when I come out there one day, me and Mrs. WeedMan, we go exploring and we get lost, we want to buy cannabis there and be able to go smoke on one of your beautiful mountains and go kayaking down your beautiful rivers and go look at the ocean and maybe go whale watching. So I'm excited to be high in New Zealand. So way to go. What else next? So here's something funny. Now, like I talked about in this episode, there's plenty of other weed men and weed women out there. In this world. I'm not the only one because there's heroes out there and they're no longer zeros. This is your weed man who you've been going, like Dog Boy's been going to for years. The back alley weed men are now being the heroes because they are your delivery service. If your cannabis, if your dispensary isn't delivering right now, you have a weed man in your neighborhood probably that can come to your house and deliver. I'm not saying to do that, but if you're not leaving your house, how else are you going to get your medicine?
I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't have other options.
Exactly. So it's a strange job title, but your dealer is now a hero. Just be careful what you're buying. They should know their product and where they're getting it from. At least a lot of people are just growing their own cannabis now too, and selling it. Just be careful. I'm not saying do it, but they are looking at dealers as being the new hero right now in this Rona 19 quarantine. And on a side note, and this is from a dealer. The pandemic is a fucking brilliant brand name, probably for something like alternative rock, punk, or even a rapper. If you choose to use this, you're welcome. If you'd become famous, drop a line about our friend, the Reefer Man, and call us back. So that's something that this article is talking about here, and I think it's just crazy that the dealers are becoming the new hero right now in the cannabis industry. Me and Mrs. Weedman have been doing a lot the last 4 weeks since this pandemic, this Rona 19 has been going crazy. But some stuff that we've learned about: one, what are you doing in your home right now? You're doing some activities, some stuff that you can learn about cannabis and stuff that if you are a cannabis user to do in your house. We've been cooking more at home.
Not with weed, just in general cooking.
Just in general cooking. We've been having some fun with that. We've been taking turns. Self-care. I've taken up yoga again, which has been great. I've been getting a little dabbling in the CBD 2-to-1 ratio and going up and doing yoga. And it's been a total blessing for me to keep my mental state clear, because it's all about, for me, it's always been this for a long time: mind, body, and soul. My mind is right. Your body's going to be right. And if your spirit or your soul, whatever you believe in, is going to be right. So self-care is something that you should be taking care of right now in this time. Any comments on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, take the news in small doses. There's enough people that are alone through this time, sitting at home. They can't have anybody coming to visit them. They don't have anyone around, and that's difficult. There's people that are worried for their health. There's a lot to worry about, and whether it's for your own well-being or the people you love and care about. So you gotta shut that TV off, go out and look at the birds chirping and springing, and take a walk. And exercise is great. News is great. We need it, but I think you just have to limit what you listen to so it doesn't stew away in your mind. And weed definitely has a place in there. Like we were saying, for people with anxiety or feeling really stressed out right now, there is a place for it. It can help you. So
also fine-tune your cannabis skills. We talked about making edibles.
Yep.
Learn how to make edibles now. It's a great time. Do some baking. I mean, you can't find any yeast. I apologize for all the bread
found
bakers.
it. Yeah. I did find it this week.
So, but the yeast was a shortage there for a hot minute because people are learning how to bake bread. Well, you can learn how to bake edibles. You can learn how to make butter, infused coconut oil, make different oils, and you can also learn how to make tinctures and have fun making some
candies.
Candies
all sorts
and stuff.
Of things.
Also, there's a great time in certain states you're able to learn to grow. In Illinois, you're able to grow 5 plants. In Michigan, you can grow. In California, you can grow. I don't know every state laws on growing, but this is a great time if you love to grow tomatoes. Learn how to grow cannabis. You can get systems pretty cheap online through Amazon or through different systems put together. They could range anywhere between $400 to $1,000, depending on how big you want to go. If you want to grow 5 plants, depending on your state, you can get a nice little system. You got to just know your state laws, but start honing in on what you want to do. Start if you love cannabis, learn about it. I know the crazy thing about it. I read people's comments sometimes, and people just want to get high. That's why they like cannabis, and that's great. Some people want to know more, and some people want to get into the industry. Now's your time to build your resume up on what you've learned on cannabis. So learn your cannabis skills. There's plenty of cannabis platforms and communities out there you can be a part of. I really believe in the what is it? The Illinois Women of Cannabis is
they're
phenomenal.
awesome.
Mrs. Weedman follows them and learns a lot and tells me a lot about what they're talking about in the industry. So if you're a woman in Illinois and you want to learn, I'm sure there's other platforms. Start your own platform.
Well, even across the board in all states. I don't know about countries outside of the U.S., but in all states in the U.S., I know that there is a very large ratio of women-owned industry in the cannabis industry. A lot of ancillary product is developed and created by women. A lot of edible consumer products are developed by women, and we have a few amazing chefs here in Chicago that have hooked up with local dispensaries and cultivation centers, and they are chefing. They are making their product and selling tons of it. So it's a pretty heavy opportunity, open opportunity for women, and it's really cool to see that we have an equal playing ground. So take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's a great industry. It's early stage industry too, where you can empower yourselves and get in it. So this is a time, for everyone who has been wanting to do something with cannabis, or there's some fun burner stoner things to do during this pandemic. I mean, you could play board games with your friends, video games, and be high and do different smoking games. And now they have this, what's that app? House Party.
House Party, yeah.
House Party, which is great. That you can have smoking parties with your friends.
Well, that's not really part of the app, but you can make it. You can make it that way.
Yeah, and what's cool, you can listen. I know you can't go to the bars and hang out with your friends right now, and I know you can't go outside and be close to your friends. But there's different things we can do to still keep your social activity up. Just because you can't share a bong rip with your buddy right now, you can each have your own bong, and you can each smoke and toast to one another and have some laughs. And that House Party app is great. I know there's Zoom and there's there's so many different apps you can do to talk to your friends.
And you really do feel better after you have those conference calls.
Absolutely.
We just talked with our kids this evening, and everybody got to see each other's face, and we got to annoy each other just enough. And
I was cooking. Mrs.
And
Weedman
be silly just
painting.
enough.
Yeah, Mrs. Weedman was painting. Polly was painting, and little weed girl. She was cooking too. So, and we were all, I had smoked before I started cooking, so I was a little baked, and we were having some fun laughing, and they were playing games on the phone. So get that social activity in there. Talk to your friends. Talk to your family. Talk to people in the can. If you want somebody to smoke with, DM me up. I'll come and DM you, and we could talk online and hook me up, man. I'll smoke with you and make you laugh. Whoever. We can have parties. Come and hook up with Mr. WEEDMAN420. We'll smoke up and make you laugh the whole time. Here's something I brought up to Mrs. Weedman, and this is kind of funny because I always wanted to know how she felt if one of our neighbors were smoking cannabis without us, and if she caught them smoking cannabis, would she be pissed that they didn't invite us over, or would she be like, just, oh, they're smoking, they're cool, they probably wouldn't mind if we were smoking, or we probably have both of our neighbors now. I don't think either one of them smokes, so I don't know.
I don't think so.
Mrs. Weedman, take it away. This is all you.
Okay. Let's see. Well, neighbors, right? We have lived in our home for a very long time. We know a lot of our neighbors very well because they've lived in their homes just as long. So it doesn't matter where you live. It just doesn't. You have neighbors, right? They might be, 5 acres away from you, and they might be an arm reach out the window away from you. I don't know. You've got neighbors. And we all have different opinions, but that's what makes life great. Because if we all thought the same way, wouldn't that be freaking boring?
We'd be robots.
Little robots. Meet, 10 more minutes. Sorry, inside joke. But neighbors, I don't know. All I know is that as I talk more and more about marijuana in my life, I learn more and more people smoke marijuana in my life. People that you don't expect to smoke marijuana smoke marijuana. It is what it is. So for all I know, 10 out of my 20 surrounding houses on my block could be smoking weed right now. I don't know. They could be.
It's kind of funny, though, too, because if you know that one does smoke... And
I want to be smoking with them.
Exactly.
So neighbors.
Yeah. It's funny because if you walk past their house and you smell it, next time you saw them, you give them that look.
Hey, I know. Right.
Hey.
But there may always be neighbors, and they might not be your immediate neighbors or on your block, but they could be the next block down, whatever, the next building down, the next floor down, wherever they live around you.
And I got noses
that
like
hate
whips.
it.
We could smell cannabis a mile away.
Yeah. And then we always chuckle like, oh, I didn't know they smoke. But you're also going to have people that turn their nose up. That's just life. I mean, there's going to be people that turn their nose up about curse words. There's going to be people that turn their nose up about you drinking a beer. You're not going to make everybody happy, and that's not what your life is about. So, you know what? I smoke weed. Huh. Call me a criminal. Put me in jail. I don't know. You can't. But the bigger picture is that to each his own. You know, I think I preached that pretty hard in my last little moment on here on the last episode. But there may be some neighbors who are surprised that I smoke weed. Hey, surprise. And there might be some that aren't surprised. I don't know. And you know what? Whatever. It's just, it's a product with a stigma, and it's just a matter of time. I think that when our children who are in their early 20s have children and their children become teenagers, marijuana is not going to be any different than talk of alcohol. I mean, we're not that far away from it changing. It's a generation away from being a regular product in a household. People are going to have little display cases like we have a wine rack and we have a beer fridge. They're going to have marijuana cases in their living room.
If people have seen our where we do the smoke sessions at the basement sessions at here, and we film our podcast, you've seen us along our wall. It's the wall of fame of strains that have made it to our wall. We're not very shy here in this house in the basement sessions. You know, I have my glass along one wall and all of our cannabis pictures and stuff like that. So if people come to our house, there's no hiding it. If we're not,
if you come downstairs.
If you come to the basement. So
it's just, I think we're just a hot minute away from it being okay. And at this point, it is legal. So if someone that I know has a problem with me smoking it, well, tell me about your drinking. You know, we can have a little rebuttal there. So, you know, I'm not saying that I don't drink. Trust me, I drink. You know, I'm having a beer right now. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that in my eyes, now that I've educated myself on marijuana, I don't see it as being any different than alcohol in a lot of ways. And so if someone was to question me and my choice to smoke marijuana, I probably wouldn't challenge them. But in my mind, I'd be like, yeah, you freaking drink. So do you want to go neck to neck on this one? Because we can. Also, I've never fought. But I pretend in my head that I can do karate.
She can do some really good karate, though. Aww. She's got some good moves.
I have skills. Yes, I've got a black belt in my brain. Okay. Sorry.
So all you neighbors out there that live close to Mrs. or Mrs. Weedman, just wait till the summertime comes and we're smoking outside on our front porch because
I can't wait to do that.
I know,
I think that's fun. We should do it tomorrow. No, I don't want to smoke.
If it's nice.
Yeah, but I'm not smoking this week.
I will. I actually smoked last week before we did the housework.
Yeah.
I smoked a joint outside. And our
but
neighbor
in the
walked
backyard.
out. Yeah, but the neighbor walked out of his back door, and I know he had to smell it.
He wanted some
stinky, dicky, icky, greasy.
He probably wanted some.
If he asked me, I would give it to him. You know me; I'm always willing to share.
Right.
But I mean, it is the quarantine right now, so I couldn't.
Yeah,
really
you can't share.
Right. Yeah. But I'd roll him one, and give him his own.
Well, maybe someday.
That's how I see. I've always said this, and you've heard me say this: cannabis brings people together. More so than drinking, more so than social gatherings, more so than barbecues.
It's pretty insane, actually.
Brings people together because I can be anywhere, and I'll give you a perfect example. I was in Croatia, and we were walking down the alley going back towards, and Mrs. Weedman smelt it and elbowed me, and she goes, "You smell that?" And I turned my nose up, I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Go find it." And I found it. And it brought me together with two waiters that were smoking outside their back of the restaurant, and it was dope. And I tell
it
you,
was.
It was.
It was dope.
It was dope as hell, smoking some dope with some Croatians out in Dubrovnik. So, and I walked away from there going, I find friends everywhere. Cannabis brings people together in social groups. It doesn't have no fear of any kind of race, religion, creed, or anything.
Mm-mm.
If you don't like it, fine. That's the only thing. People say no to it, or people say yes to it, or people say they've never tried it, but they want to try it. There's your three options. And everybody who I've introduced cannabis to, or anybody who I've smoked a joint with or gave an edible to has been my friend for life.
Because and people who have it just love to share it. Like if someone has it, like that perfect scenario, those guys didn't know you. We didn't even speak the same language.
Nope. I was wearing a cannabis shirt, though, remember?
Yeah, you followed the smell, and they were like, "Here, bro, have some."
Kind of like two can't stand. His nose always knows.
Yeah, I've never seen someone turn away and be like, dude, back off. You're not having any of my weed.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
everybody, it's just like such a sharing, open environment.
Yep. I mean, it's great. I love it. So, and I love sharing cannabis with people. Mrs. Weedman knows that because we do something every year called the Skunk Bus, and I share a ton of cannabis with people. And it's one of my favorite times of the year, and it's on 420, which is today. So I'm sharing cannabis with people after this podcast, and I'm going to be going to visit people and sharing cannabis with. It might not be a joint right now, but it'll be an edible. I'll be throwing edibles out the door to people who would like one. So find Weedman on the streets after this podcast. But the last thing I want to talk about is be kind and be nice out there to people right now, like we've talked about on this podcast before. See somebody, help them out. Stop leaving your fucking plastic gloves all over the fucking place. And I'm going to use the F-bomb on that. Stop leaving your plastic gloves on the ground, people. It's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Disgusting. All right? We're human beings. Okay? We're all human on this planet. Stop leaving your gloves. And make sure you wear a mask right now, too. Protect other people. Protect your workers that are working at grocery stores, your truck drivers, your people that are your healthcare workers, your firemen, your policemen, your beer distributors.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we want to end this by saying we love you all. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram, Twitter, listen to us on Spotify, Buzzsprout, Apple. Also want to thank all 7,500 downloads right now of our podcast across the world. We thank you for that. Have a great 420. Be safe out there. Enjoy edibles with people and smoke your own joints and pass them out to people. Have the best 420 possible. As Paulie always says, smoke smart.
Peace out, everybody. Happy 420.
Puff, puff, and away.
Puff, puff.